Is the thing between your legs with which you do mating?" asked alien girl while man is taking shower. The morning sun filtered through the bathroom window, creating dancing patterns on the shower curtain as Adrian Bennett enjoyed his morning routine. Steam filled the small space as hot water cascaded over his shoulders, washing away the tension from yesterday's long hours at the marine biology lab. He hummed softly, mind wandering to the upcoming research project on deep-sea bioluminescence. The bathroom door clicked open. "Excuse me, but is this the human cleansing chamber?" a melodious voice asked, completely casual and unaware of Earth's privacy conventions. Adrian froze, his hand instinctively reaching for the shower curtain to ensure it stayed in place. I'm in here," he managed to sputter, heart racing. "Oh, yes, I can see that," the voice replied matter-of-factly. "I'm Lyra, your new roommate from Kepler, 186F. The housing coordinator informed me this would be my living space for the duration of my xenobiology fellowship." Adrian's mind raced. Right. The interplanetary, research exchange program. He'd received the notification last week but had been so absorbed in his work he'd completely forgotten. "Could you, please wait outside?" Adrian asked, trying to maintain his composure. Humans typically prefer privacy while showering. Fascinating. Lyra's voice carried genuine scientific interest. "Is this related to your species' curious habit of covering your epidermis with artificial layers? I've been studying human customs, but there's so much to learn." Through the translucent curtain, Adrian could make out a slender silhouette. Lyra's form was humanoid, but there was an ethereal quality to her movements, almost as if she was floating rather than walking. "Yes, exactly," Adrian replied, grimacing at the awkwardness of explaining human modesty while naked. "We have strong cultural norms about privacy, especially regarding our bodies. Could we perhaps discuss this after I'm dressed?" "Of course. My apologies if I've violated a social protocol." The briefing mentioned humans have complex behavioral patterns regarding their physical forms, but experiencing it firsthand is quite illuminating. The door clicked shut, and Adrian let out a long breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Once certain he was alone, he quickly finished his shower and dressed in record time, his mind buzzing with questions about his new roommate. When he emerged from the bathroom, he found Lyra in the kitchen, examining the coffee maker with intense concentration. In the morning light, he could properly see her for the first time. She appeared mostly human, save for the subtle iridescence of her skin that seemed to shift colors like the surface of a soap bubble. Her hair floated as if suspended in water, despite the complete absence of wind in the apartment. "I apologize for my earlier intrusion," Lyra said, turning to face him. Her eyes were the most striking feature, deep violet with flecks of silver that seemed to dance like stars. "I'm still adjusting to Earth's social customs. On my world, we value transparency in all things. The concept of privacy is novel." Adrian found himself relaxing despite the awkward first encounter. There was something disarmingly genuine about her curiosity. "No harm done," he replied, moving to rescue the coffee maker from her intense scrutiny. "I'm Adrian Bennett. I work in marine biology at the research center." "Marine biology." Lyra's eyes lit up literally, the silver flecks brightening. "How wonderful. I'm here to study Earth's diverse life forms, particularly the way your species interacts with other organisms. The parallel evolution of social behaviors across different planets is my specialty." As Adrian prepared coffee for himself, he found himself drawn into a fascinating discussion about the differences between Earth and Kepler's ecosystems. Lyra's enthusiasm was infectious, and her unique perspective made him see familiar concepts in a new light. "Would you like to try some coffee?" he offered, holding up a second mug. "I would love to experience this human ritual," Lyra replied, accepting the cup with careful movements. "Though I should warn you, my species processes caffeine quite differently. It might make my bioluminescence more pronounced." Sure enough, as she sipped the coffee, the iridescence of her skin began to glow more intensely, creating subtle patterns that rippled across her face and hands. Adrian found himself fascinated by the display, his scientific curiosity overriding any lingering embarrassment from their bathroom encounter. "That's incredible," he murmured, watching the colors shift. "The way your biology interacts with Earth substances could be a fascinating study in itself." Lyra smiled, and Adrian noticed how her emotions seemed to influence the patterns of light dancing across her skin. "Perhaps we could collaborate on some research. Your expertise in Earth biology combined with my off-world perspective might yield interesting results." As they continued talking, the morning sun climbing higher in the sky, Adrian realized that this unexpected roommate situation might turn out to be more than just an awkward cultural exchange. There was something special about Lyra, a combination of brilliant intellect and innocent wonder that made him see his own world through new eyes. Little did he know, this unusual morning was just the beginning of an adventure that would challenge everything he thought he knew about life, love, and the vast possibilities that existed among the stars. The following weeks brought a series of endearing misunderstandings as Lyra adjusted to life on Earth. Adrian found himself becoming both guide and student, learning as much about her world as she did about his. One evening, after a long day at the research center, Adrian returned home to find Lyra sitting cross-legged on the ceiling of their living room, surrounded by floating holographic displays showing anatomical diagrams of various Earth species. "Adrian," she called out cheerfully, her bioluminescence brightening at his arrival. "I've been studying human courtship rituals. Did you know your species uses chemical signals similar to the phosphorescent jellies in your oceans?" "Fascinating." Adrian tried not to stare as she gracefully descended from the ceiling, her silver-flecked hair swirling around her face as if she were underwater. "We usually call them pheromones," he managed, setting down his research bags. "Though I don't think we're quite as efficient at it as jellyfish." "But you do have other methods," Lyra continued, pulling up a holographic image of a human couple holding hands. "This gesture, for instance. I've observed it frequently in public spaces, but I'm uncertain of its significance. Is it a form of biological synchronization?" Adrian felt his cheeks warm. "It's more of an emotional connection," he explained, watching as the patterns of light across Lyra's skin shifted to a curious shade of azure. "Humans often express affection through physical contact." "Show me." Lyra extended her hand, her expression one of pure scientific interest. Adrian hesitated for a moment before gently taking her hand. Her skin was surprisingly warm, and where their palms touched, her bioluminescence created intricate patterns that spiraled up her arm like constellations coming to life. "Oh." Lyra's eyes widened, the silver flecks in them dancing. "Your cellular electrical activity just increased significantly. Is that normal?" "That's, another human thing," Adrian mumbled, aware his heart was indeed beating faster. "Sometimes our bodies react to certain situations. Like your chromatic variation." Lyra observed enthusiastically, reaching up with her free hand to touch his reddened cheek. "I've noticed this happens frequently in my presence. Initially, I was concerned it might be an allergic reaction to my bioluminescence." Adrian couldn't help but laugh, though he didn't pull away from her touch. "Not exactly. It's called blushing. It happens when we're embarrassed or, when we're around someone we find interesting." "Interesting?" Lyra's skin rippled with new patterns, creating what looked like shooting stars across her forearms. "You find me interesting, Adrian?" Before he could formulate a response, Lyra's research tablet chimed with an alert. "Oh. The cellular samples." She reluctantly withdrew her hands and moved to check her experiments, leaving Adrian feeling strangely bereft of her touch. Over dinner, she had insisted on cooking, though her understanding of Earth cuisine led to some creative interpretations. Lyra shared her latest research findings. "Human social structures are remarkably similar to the symbiotic relationships in your oceans," she explained, gesturing with chopsticks she'd mastered surprisingly quickly. "Different individuals filling specialized roles, all working together in a complex dance of mutual benefit. Like your research fellowship?" Adrian asked, carefully avoiding the mysterious purple substance on his plate that occasionally pulsed with its own light. Exactly. Though I must admit, some aspects of human interaction still confuse me. She tilted her head, causing her floating hair to create mesmerizing patterns in the air. For instance, why do humans often say things that mean the opposite of what they feel? Today, a colleague said they were fine, but their physiological indicators suggested significant distress. Adrian smiled, finding her literal interpretation of human behavior oddly refreshing. We're complicated creatures. Sometimes we hide our true feelings because we're afraid of being vulnerable. Vulnerability. Lyra tested the word, her skin shifting to a deeper shade of blue. On my world, we believe that true understanding can only come through complete openness. Our bioluminescence makes it difficult to hide our emotional states. It's considered a gift, not a weakness. As if to demonstrate, the patterns across her skin formed intricate swirls that Adrian had begun to recognize as signs of contentment. He found himself wondering what it would be like to live in a world where feelings couldn't be hidden, where every emotion was displayed in beautiful patterns of light. Maybe we could learn something from that, he said softly, watching the light play across her features. Though I have to admit, I'm glad you can't see all of my emotions quite so clearly. Lyra's eyes met his, the silver flecks in them particularly bright. Actually, human biological signatures are quite revealing to my species. Your heart rate, body temperature, pupil dilation, they tell a very clear story. She smiled, her skin briefly flashing with patterns he'd never seen before. For instance, right now you're experiencing elevated levels of more dinner. Adrian interrupted quickly, reaching for the serving dish, causing Lyra to laugh, a sound like wind chimes that made the lights dancing across her skin sparkle like diamonds. As they cleared the dishes together, their hands occasionally brushing, Adrian realized that despite their differences, or perhaps because of them, he was developing feelings for his alien roommate that went far beyond scientific curiosity. The question was, in a universe of infinite possibilities, could a human marine biologist and a Keplerian xenobiologist find a way to bridge the vast distance between their worlds? The answer, he suspected, would prove to be the greatest discovery of his scientific career. The accident happened on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Adrian was working late in the marine biology lab, studying bioluminescent properties of deep-sea specimens they'd collected from the Pacific Trench. The samples were kept in a pressurized containment unit, carefully regulated to maintain the extreme conditions of the ocean depths. Lyra had stopped by to bring him dinner. She'd been practicing earth cooking, though her creations still occasionally defied the laws of terrestrial physics. She floated near the ceiling, her natural preference when excited, watching him work with undisguised fascination. The bioluminescent patterns of these creatures, she observed, her own skin shimming in response to the specimens, they're remarkably similar to Keplerian courtship displays. Adrian adjusted his protective gear, checking the pressure readings. Really? How so? Well, Lyra descended gracefully, her hair swirling around her face like silver smoke. See how the lights pulse in synchronized patterns. On my world, potential mates often. She stopped abruptly, her eyes widening. Adrian, the containment unit's pressure is dropping. Before Adrian could react, there was a sharp crack. The reinforced glass of the containment unit splintered, creating a spiderweb pattern that spread rapidly across its surface. Adrian knew he had seconds before the unit would implode, sending shards of glass and pressurized water throughout the lab. Get back, he shouted, moving to hit the emergency shutdown, but he knew he wouldn't reach it in time. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Lyra's body began to glow with an intensity he'd never seen before, her usual iridescent patterns transforming into pure, brilliant light. She moved with impossible speed, her form somehow both solid and fluid as she wrapped herself around Adrian. The containment unit exploded. Instead of feeling the expected impact of glass and water, Adrian found himself enclosed in what appeared to be a bubble of pure energy. Lyra's light had expanded to create a protective sphere around them both, her body no longer appearing entirely solid but rather composed of swirling patterns of light and matter. Through the transparent barrier of her energy field, Adrian watched as glass shards and pressurized water bounced harmlessly away. The lab's emergency systems activated, sirens blaring and containment protocols engaging, but all he could focus on was Lyra. Her face was inches from his, her violet eyes now blazing like twin supernovas. "Are you unharmed?" she asked, her voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. "I'm fine," he managed, acutely aware of how her transformed body seemed to flow around him like living starlight. "But you, what are you?" The energy field slowly dissipated as the lab's systems contained the damage. Lyra's form solidified back to her usual appearance, though her skin still pulsed with residual energy. "I may have neglected to mention certain aspects of Keplerian biology," she said, somewhat sheepishly. "Our bodies can transition between various states of matter and energy when necessary." Adrian stared at her, his scientific mind racing to process what he'd just witnessed. That's incredible. You literally transformed yourself into a force field." "A simple manipulation of molecular bonds and energy states," Lyra explained, though her skin flushed with patterns that suggested embarrassment. "It's considered rather intimate in my culture. We typically only merge our energy with those we care deeply about." The implications of her words hung in the air between them. Adrian reached out, touching her arm where the light still danced beneath her skin. "You saved my life," he said softly. "Of course I did." Lyra's voice was equally quiet. "The thought of you being harmed created such distress in my cellular structure that transformation was inevitable. I'm afraid I've become quite attached to you, Adrian Bennett, in ways that go beyond scientific interest." The lab's emergency lights cast a red glow over them both, mixing with Lyra's natural luminescence to create otherworldly patterns on the walls. Adrian was suddenly very aware of how close they were standing, how her hair still floated and swirled around them both like a nebula. "I should probably report this incident," he said, not moving away. "The containment unit failure could have implications for the entire research program." "Yes," Lyra agreed, her fingers intertwining with his. "Though perhaps we should also discuss the implications of an interspecies energy merger in a professional research facility." Adrian couldn't help but laugh, the tension of the moment breaking. "Is that going to be included in your xenobiology report?" "Oh, definitely. Though I may need to conduct further research." Her skin rippled with playful patterns of light. "For scientific thoroughness, of course." "Of course," Adrian echoed, finding himself captivated by the way the silver flecks in her eyes seemed to dance. "Though maybe we should continue this discussion somewhere with fewer broken containment units and emergency protocols." "An excellent suggestion. I believe humans often process traumatic experiences over something called coffee." As they left the lab together, Adrian's hand still clasped in hers, he realized that nearly losing his life had made something crystal clear: his feelings for Lyra had evolved far beyond mere scientific curiosity or even friendship. The question was, in a universe governed by physical laws and biological constraints, could love transcend the boundaries between stars? Looking at Lyra, her body still occasionally flickering with remnants of the energy that had saved his life, Adrian thought perhaps some questions were worth exploring, regardless of the answer. The research vessel gently rocked on the Pacific waves under a moonless night. Adrian stood at the stern, checking equipment readings while Lyra hovered cross-legged beside him, her natural bioluminescence providing extra light for their work. They were 3 days into their joint research expedition studying deep-sea bioluminescent creatures, combining their expertise in marine biology and xenobiology. "The readings from the deep-water sensors are fascinating," Lyra said, her hair floating in patterns that mimicked the ocean currents below. "The communication patterns of your marine life forms share remarkable similarities with my species' ancient texts describing our evolutionary path." Adrian adjusted the sensitivity on their detection equipment. "You evolved from aquatic life forms too?" "In a manner of speaking." Lyra's skin rippled with thoughtful patterns. "Though our oceans were made of liquid crystal rather than water. It's why we retained our ability to shift between solid and energy states." The memory of her transformation in the lab still took Adrian's breath away. Since that day, something had shifted between them, an unspoken acknowledgement of feelings that transcended their professional relationship. "There!" Lyra suddenly exclaimed, pointing to the depth readings. A massive congregation of bioluminescent organisms at 300 meters. Adrian quickly adjusted their underwater cameras, and the ship's screens lit up with a spectacular display. Thousands of creatures moved in synchronized patterns, their lights pulsing in what appeared to be a complicated dance. "It's a mating ritual," Adrian explained, though he knew Lyra had already reached the same conclusion. "They're using light to find compatible partners." "Like this?" Lyra asked softly, and suddenly the patterns across her skin changed, forming intricate swirls that matched the rhythm of the creatures below. Adrian's heart skipped a beat. Is that a Keplerian courtship display?" "Yes." Her violet eyes met his, the silver flecks especially bright. "I've been studying human courtship rituals for months now, trying to find the right way to express certain things. But perhaps I should simply do it in my own way." The lights across her skin began to dance in even more complex patterns, creating a display that made the bioluminescent creatures below seem dim in comparison. Adrian watched, transfixed, as the lights formed what looked like star maps, DNA helixes, and ocean waves, all flowing into each other in a hypnotic dance. "On my world," Lyra continued, her voice taking on that otherworldly resonance he'd heard during the lab accident, "we believe that true connection happens when two beings can share their inner light. Every pattern I'm showing you is a memory, the first time I saw you in the shower and didn't understand human privacy, the way your heartbeat sounds different when you look at me, the moment I chose to risk revealing my true nature to save you." Adrian reached out, touching a swirl of light on her arm. The pattern immediately responded, spreading to his skin in a warm tingle. "I don't have bioluminescence to show you my memories," he said softly. "But I can see them anyway," Lyra replied, placing her hand over his heart. "Your body tells stories in other ways, in electrical impulses, in chemical reactions, in the dilation of your pupils when I'm near. Humans may not glow on the outside, but you shine so brightly within." The research equipment beeped insistently, reminding them of their professional duties, but neither moved. Above them, the stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, while below, the ocean's living lights continued their eternal dance. "I think I'm in love with you," Adrian said finally, the words feeling both impossible and absolutely right. "I know it's complicated, we're from different worlds, different species even. But..." Lyra silenced him by pressing her forehead to his, her light enveloping them both in a soft glow. "Love is perhaps the one constant that transcends planetary boundaries," she whispered. "On every world I've studied, beings find ways to connect, to bond, to share their light with each other. Why should we be any different?" As if in response to her words, the bioluminescent creatures below suddenly surged upward, surrounding their ship in a spiral of living light. Lyra laughed in delight, the sound making her entire body pulse with joy, and Adrian found himself laughing too. In that moment, surrounded by Earth's glowing creatures and embraced by the light of a woman from the stars, Adrian understood that some things, love, wonder, the desire to connect, truly were universal constants, as fundamental to existence as gravity or light itself. The equipment continued to record data, documenting the spectacular behavior of the marine life below, but its most remarkable discovery wouldn't appear in any scientific journal: the simple truth that love, like light, knows no boundaries. The last day of Lyra's fellowship arrived with the inevitability of a setting sun. The apartment they'd shared for 6 months felt different that morning, quieter, heavier with unspoken words. Adrian watched as Lyra's few possessions, mostly research equipment and data crystals, floated gently into her dimensional storage unit, a piece of Keplerian technology that still amazed him. "The Interstellar Academic Council is very impressed with our research," Lyra said, her voice carrying forced lightness as her skin swirled with melancholic blues and purples. "They're particularly interested in the parallel evolution of bioluminescent communication across different star systems." "That's great," Adrian replied, trying to match her professional tone while his heart felt like it was being squeezed in a deep-sea pressure chamber. The marine biology department is already talking about expanding the program next year. Lyra paused in her packing, her hair settling around her shoulders in a way he'd learned meant she was deeply troubled. They want me to lead the expansion, she said quietly. From Kepler. The words hung between them like a physical barrier. Adrian moved closer, reaching for her hand, a gesture that had become as natural as breathing over the past months. Her skin immediately lit up with responsive patterns, tiny swirls of light that danced between their joined fingers. We knew this was coming, he said softly. Your fellowship had a fixed term. The logical conclusion to a scientific exchange program, Lyra agreed, though her skin betrayed her emotions with waves of darker colors. A successful experiment in interspecies cooperation and knowledge sharing. Is that all it was? Adrian asked, his voice barely a whisper. An experiment? Lyra's free hand came up to touch his face, her palm cool against his skin. You know it wasn't, she said, her violet eyes swimming with silver. What happened between us was something else entirely, something wonderful and impossible and real. Then stay, Adrian heard himself say. Or let me come with you. There must be marine biology research opportunities on Kepler. I could. Adrian, Lyra interrupted gently, her whole body beginning to glow with the intensity of emotion he'd first witnessed during the lab accident. Your world needs you here. The oceans you study, the life forms you protect, they're part of who you are. And my world, they're expecting me to share everything I've learned, to help bridge the gap between our species. We've already bridged that gap, Adrian protested. What we discovered together, it's more than just scientific data. We proved that connection is possible across any distance, any difference. Lyra's form shimmed, momentarily becoming less solid as her emotions affected her molecular structure. Which is exactly why I have to go back, she said. What we found together isn't just about us. It's about proving that love can exist beyond the boundaries of species, planets, even basic physics. Our story could help pave the way for others. She pulled away slightly, her body stabilizing, and reached into her dimensional storage unit. What she withdrew looked like a crystal, but it pulsed with internal light in patterns Adrian recognized as matching his own heartbeat. This is a Keplerian quantum resonance crystal, she explained, pressing it into his hand. I've attuned it to my bioluminescent frequency. As long as I exist somewhere in the universe, it will glow with my light. Distance doesn't affect quantum entanglement. Adrian closed his fingers around the crystal, feeling its warm pulse. A piece of your light. More than that, Lyra smiled, her skin creating patterns he'd come to recognize as love. It's also a key to Kepler's interdimensional transport network. Once I've established the proper protocols and permissions, well, let's just say that interplanetary long-distance relationships aren't quite as impossible as they used to be. Hope bloomed in Adrian's chest like one of his deep-sea creatures suddenly finding light in the darkness. You mean? I mean that some experiments deserve long-term study, Lyra said, her eyes twinkling. After all, how can we properly document the effects of human Keplerian pair bonding without an extensive research period? Adrian laughed, pulling her close. Always the scientist. Always, she agreed, her form shifting slightly to better fit against his. Though I must admit, my interest in this particular study has become rather personal. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Lyra's light encompassed them both in a gentle glow. The crystal in Adrian's hand pulsed in sync with their heartbeats, a physical reminder that some connections transcend physical space. I love you, Adrian said, the words still feeling like a miracle every time he spoke them. Across any distance, any time, any space between stars. And I love you, Lyra replied, her light burning brighter than ever. In all forms, all states of matter and energy, all configurations of the universe. Later, as he watched her transport beam shimmer and fade, Adrian held the crystal close to his heart. Its steady pulse reminded him that love, like light, like life itself, finds a way to persist, to evolve, to bridge even the vast distances between stars. Their story wasn't ending, he realized. Like all good scientific discoveries, it was simply entering a new phase of exploration. And somewhere out there, among the infinite possibilities of space and time, a human marine biologist and a Keplerian xenobiologist had proved that the greatest force in the universe wasn't gravity or dark energy or even light itself. It was love, in all its forms, transcending every boundary it encountered.